Hi there, this is Suzanne Wagner. Thank you so much for joining me. We are doing the numerology and the astrology for March 9th, 2021. If you add all those numbers together, you get the number 17, and if you add the 1 and the 7 together, you get the number 8. The number 8 is the number of infinity, the infinite. It helps us define our connection as the bridge between heaven and earth and heaven. It is about that first breath that we take when we become born, and we take that deep breath and that cry escapes a baby's voice, and it opens us up to the life force energy and being fully present in this dimension. So if you don't breathe, you'll die super fast. The gurus used to say that we're all addicted to everything. Like, everything on this planet is designed to be addictive. Sweets, chocolate, food, alcohol, nature, exercise, dancing, music, everything can be actually highly addictive. But the one thing that we are super addicted to is actually breathing, because it's the sign of life. Plants breathe. Every animal breathes. When we die, we stop breathing. And so that breath is so important on so many levels. And all the versions of breathing tell us so much about our state. So today, kind of notice, how's your breathing? Are you breathing fully? Are you breathing life all the way in? Are you breathing life all the way into your belly? Are you holding your breath? Are you doing shallow breathing? Are you not letting life force fully in? I believe that air has energized particles of light. And those particles that are energized have actually information encoded in them. And the more that we breathe, the more we take in knowledge, information, wisdom, awareness. We become more aware of everything around us on a circumstantial level. And so this moment, I would say, let's breathe as a deep sigh of relief, that deep letting out. Okay, let out so much on so many levels. Everybody has gone through so many shifts in the last 4 or 5 years. The changes have probably never been more apparent. There is a tangible level of clarified intention, and that makes all things seem possible, finally, once again. With that shift also comes grief for what each of us has been through. It's like you don't let out completely until you feel safe enough that you can actually take that breath completely out, because otherwise we're holding our breath, we're holding tight to our chest, we're protecting our heart. So when you don't breathe fully, you're actually protecting your heart. And it is evident that so much has happened to alter to get us out of our ruts. Talk about the universe taking, hundreds of millions of crowbars and getting us out of our stuckness. Clearly, we needed a big push, and boy, did we get it. And what is difficult to understand is that some required such a lesson to learn, and others did not. That they did have the clarity to know right from wrong, but such moments in history take all of us with them. History picks a moment in time. It does not take sides. And this was our moment, and it still is. And that brings us to the realization that much more is coming. Something very different is moving and becoming alive. That things that make us look past our attachments and all the old patterns of striving. I care less and less for the absurd and obvious. I care more and more for the essential, the subtle, the mystical, the spiritual, and the natural. The astrology today. The moon moves from Capricorn into the new age sign of Aquarius as we are sleeping. It allows us to awaken enthusiasm and hopefulness to what we cannot yet see, and that is perhaps hidden by the mists of the future. I hear that a lot right now, that people just feel like they can't see what the next step is. They can't see if they should take this position or choice is the correct choice. because they normally have an instinct or a feeling or a knowing inside of them. But the way there's so much Aquarian energy going on, and there's so much in transition, and when things are in that energetic transition, it's really hard to predict the outcome. So what do? Fortunately, I asked the guides many years ago, like in situations like this, what do you do? And they said, you will get all the lessons that you signed up for in this lifetime. The only thing you get to do is to choose which ones you're going to get next. Okay? So in the choices that are happening right now, there are no massive rights or wrongs. There are clearly choices that are bridges that are taking us to the next set of karmic lessons. And that's really important. Like, I think people have been so miserable for the last 5 years that they just want to feel better. They just want to feel happy, and they want to feel content, and they want to go back to that place of peacefulness. But I don't think we're ever going back there. I think waking up is hard to do. And I think that the next steps for all of us are pushing us into our edges. And I don't think that's bad. But I think it's uncomfortable. I think it's incredibly uncomfortable to probably for the rest of our lives be leaning into those edges. And so we're going to get more and more comfortable with leaning into those edges and less reactive and less stressed out about it. But it is that place that, something is being intentionally hidden from all of us about the future. And what I know about premonitions and being a psychic is when everything is foggy, it means that the choices and decisions are not all yours. So when a choice is specifically and distinctly yours, then you can actually see the sequence and the consequence. But when you're dealing with a massive global shift in consciousness, that every person's choices impact you, and they impact your trajectory and impact what your next steps are going to be. And so this is probably one of the most powerful places where you have to have that balance between your right brain and your left brain. I mean, I dealt with this just the other day with a client that is an incredibly spiritual, intuitive, perceptive, magical person, right? And they're faced with these choices, and none of them are bad choices, but what I had to do was I had to pull them back and say, okay, wait, look at this choice and look at the trajectory that this choice is going to bring. And remember that 5 years from now, you're going to have these financial considerations to deal with. And if you make this choice, this choice actually doesn't cost you the same amount of money, creates an anchor, creates a doorway, creates a possibility that then you can build upon and work. So there are two different choices, and one is more like the idealistic dream, and one is more like a bridge. And when things are this murky, I always say bridges are better than ultimates or ultimatums. Like, I'm going to go for my biggest dream. I'm like, I've learned a long time ago that what my dream is, even when I put all my energy and effort into it, when I finally get there, it actually didn't look like what I wanted when I started that dream. So, the dream is partially our intention, partially our karmic lessons, and partially how the universe has an agenda for what our growth opportunities are and what they're building inside of our core for the next lifetime and the lifetime beyond that. Because you have to remember, angels and guides don't live in linear time. So they're seeing all of this simultaneously, and so we're so concerned about just like the immediate future and just feeling better immediately. And trust me, I mean, I'm with everybody. I want to feel better immediately too, but I also recognize that what's unfolding is something that has never been created in the history of this world. And that takes everyone and everyone's agendas and everyone's focused concentration. So what I'd like for everybody to do is to look inside yourself and say, what is my gift to the world? And then move towards giving that gift as unconditionally loving and openly as possible, without attachments, without agendas, without locking yourself into a particular pattern, which sounds really easy, but it's actually not. So, we're in this place where we're in no man's land. We're walking through fog, and we don't know what's ahead of us. We don't know what is hiding in the mist. We don't know what is hiding in our future that is ready to jump out of us. Yes, everyone would like to see a sunny, bright, clear path in front of us, but we're not on a path that has been walked before. We're on a path that we are making with our intention. And so we are literally creating, sort of like those games, where you walk into a place and all of a sudden the game opens up, and then there's all this other stuff in there, and then you can't see the next thing until you get the clue, and then you get the clue and you walk into a whole new, and suddenly there's a whole new level. That's what we're doing right now. We're trying to get the clues put together to figure out how to open this door that's in front of us, and we have no idea what's behind that door. There could be monsters, there could be miracles, there could be magic, there could be success, there could be failure, and just remember that you are not guaranteed in this lifetime always to have successes. Life is about addressing the failures and then knowing what to do when those failures happen, and to not see them as failures, but to say, okay, I clearly needed to learn this lesson for this particular thing. So with this moon in Aquarius, it's encouraging us to take a risk and to stretch. If we're using the game metaphor again, you can't continue the game if you refuse to try to answer the riddle and get the clues and find an answer. Like you have to risk, you have to stretch. And it reminds us that the unusual things in life awaken us to the memory and the awareness that we are so much more. We are. And it reminds us that being friendly is always a good thing, and it reminds us that having principles that dictate our actions for a higher calling are essential to hold on to, because right now we're in no man's land, and I go, all you've got is your principles and your higher calling and your actions, and that does not mean you are guaranteed success. It absolutely does not. But even if I fail in that place, I feel like I have not lost myself, not lost my principles, not lost my core truth of who I am. I haven't given myself away. I haven't broken myself into pieces to make other people happy. That I'm coming from my essential core. And no matter what, if you do that over and over again, even if you realize you have to modify your perspectives and belief systems, which is really what's up right now, is that a lot of people need to look at the modifications that need to happen. So, now, Mercury semi-squares to Chiron, stirring up more tensions. But Chiron is the wounded healer teacher, and Mercury is the communicator. And so we're trying to learn to communicate with the parts of ourself that are still wounded and still trying to heal. And we kind of must find ways to work with the deep sensitivity that we are uncovering and still figure out how to communicate that clearly. So doubt is to be expected. Perceptions seem not completely real. Rules seem to hold us back from directions we know are necessary. This causes troubled, anxious thoughts to invade the clarity of direction we know is essential to move ahead. While it is difficult to have faith and confidence in our choices when the future is so murky, we know that choices here are all about defining a direction and a path forward so that the angels and guides can begin to create that which our collective hearts want the next evolution for humanity to be. So, I have a couple of multiple quotes here. The first one is actually an anonymous quote. You learn nothing from life if you think you are right all the time. Right? That's why the gurus talk always about, going into like student mind, that open mind. I don't know anything, so let's hear the information. Let's integrate this information. My second quote is mine. You experience nothing in life without risk. A life with no stories to share is a life still seeking meaning and purpose. Okay? And my blog for today. Within your core, you have a special key. one that unlocks the future, the ultimate mystery. We cannot see the keyhole from our mind. It hides in the mist that exists beyond time. Such secrets hide in plain sight, but it is not our eyes that can reveal this delight. It is often seen with the inner eye, a place protected by an ancient ally. Even once the hole is found, a great force is required to get the ground, to move the ancient stones of man and reveal from whence it all began. The endings we seek bring us back to the birth, that moment when we still remembered our worth. Thanks, everyone.